He's here. Now broadcasting from the wide open spaces of McClendon, Chisholm, Texas, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with the greatest threat to Rockwall County's liberal left, a true conservative and our leader, Bunker Bob.
Yes, good morning. It is election day in McClendon, Chisholm, and I am excited about this morning's program because as many of you are watching my program for the first time, I'm sure, because of what you read in the Rockwall, what I call the Rockwall Hilarious banner, not the Rockwall Herald banner, I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding that went along with this piece, and that's why I wanted to take some time today and talk to you, specifically those of you who've never seen this show, who have never come on my website, and who really don't know much about me. I'm sure there's a lot of you out there, and that's especially why I'm coming to you today, this morning, as you consider going to the polls. Obviously, what you saw in the Rockwall Hilarious banner, as I call it, is something that I would take exception with, and I wanted to take some time to explain why. And I hope that this is helpful to you. And the first question and the first point that should be noted is that that I was never interviewed for this piece. And the reporter, Landon Fisher, this is common when I was on city council and mayor. When one time Mayor Pro Tem Wayne Orchard and I met with Mr. Fisher, we asked him to meet with us. We asked him the question, why don't you call us for comment, reach out to us? I mean, we're accessible, we're available, especially when you're writing stories about us that we would like to at least speak to, and I think that our voice should be heard. And Mr. Fisher's response to that was, well, you have your opportunity to speak on issues when you're behind the dais, and that you do not need additional time. Yep, I just realized my sorry about that. But his point is that we have all the time we need to speak on issues, and that when we're in a city council meeting, that really kind of belies the point that for a mayor and city council, they cannot discuss things that are not part of the agenda, of the written agenda. It's a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act. And so, unfortunately, many of the stories that Mr. Fisher wrote were about things that did not pertain to the agenda. And some of the comments that were made that in his stories were basic fabrications and untruths. And this was concerning to me when I was on council, and it's concerning to me when I was mayor, and it's concerning to me now when he creates a front page story that it makes assertions about me that are simply untrue. I want to begin with the cover photo and the point that of where he obtained this and why he used this photo in particular. If you'll notice at the bottom right hand corner of the picture, it's in if you're reading your banner, you can see it. It says courtesy photo. Well, what does that mean? In the press, for the press, a courtesy photo is something that they've received from someone. And this courtesy photo actually came from one of the productions that I did, and it was the Knife Wielding Man production. And in that production, I have about probably 100 or so slides. And this is the one, though, that they chose to use. This is a very unflattering picture, but more importantly, the image there is in my opinion, intentional. And to draw that point home, I want to focus. I just want to take the portion of that video, the Knife Wielding Man video, and I want to show you what I was saying about it, which essentially proves my point. Watch this. Look, even if you buy even a tenth of all the baseless lies about me in the last election when I was mayor that portrayed me as the incarnation of Satan himself, isn't it worth your time to at least see the facts all of the facts for yourself? Shouldn't you be willing to open your eyes, especially if you consider yourself to be guided by reason and intellect over emotion? So the point that I was making is that I've been demonized in the knife wielding man video. I focus on the fact that the election, last year's campaigns, were drawn on and based upon complete and utter half-truths, misinformation, and lies. And that's how Keith Short, Herman Larkin, and Jim Bloom won their election. And that's why I created the show, fundamentally because the citizens of McLennan Chisholm have been duped in the last election. In fact, I'm the most conservative mayor in the city's history, but you wouldn't know that if you read the propaganda that was put out by our opponents. And so that's why this show goes through. And if you look at the especially the first few many shows, the knife wielding man video establishes everything. It explains my points of view. It explains how the campaigns were run. It explains everything. And I think it's important for citizens to understand that what was happening then is happening now again. And so when when I see this image being put on the front page of the paper, that is, in my opinion, an attack on me. And the reason I think that's important is because the headline says that former MC mayor attacks candidates through YouTube series. Now, I would take strong exception to that mischaracterization because I'm not attacking anyone. These programs, if you've watched any of them, you will see that I am bringing the facts to light. I'm not creating or concocting arguments out of whole cloth. I am using the half-truths, misinformation, and outright lies that have been propagated in our city and putting a light on the facts, the whole truth. That's what I'm doing. But as I've said before, truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. And so in this age of snowflake generation, for lack of a better term, everyone seems to be the victim. It is very easy to identify as a victim of personal attacks or mean-spirited or hate. And the words that are coming across from the other side are descriptive not of conservatism. In fact, you don't hear conservatives use the terminology, the words that those like William Dahl, who's running for city council, Trudy Wassner, who's running for city council, Lorna Kippen, who's running for city council. Conservatives don't use the words that they do. And that is my fundamental point. It's why I created this program. And so in light of that, I just want to go through very quickly this story so that you can see and gain some perspective about what is really going on, what I believe is really going on. And the story starts out with former McLennan Chisholm Mayor Robert Steinhagen, who has kept largely out of public eye since his defeat by current Mayor Keith Short in May election last year, is attempting to make a comeback. Making a comeback is not the purpose of this show. And I'm gonna conclude the show with why I created the show. And it has nothing to do with trying to make a name for myself or trying to come back. I'm doing this show in an entertaining way so that it doesn't bore people to death and they choose to turn off. One thing I know is if I want to hold people's attention, I need to do so in a way that will grab you and will spur some thinking on your part. And so that's what I do. I challenge you in every show that I do to think about some of the facts of evidence that are overwhelmingly apparent. So he says I'm making a comeback, this time with a conservative talks radio style show on the YouTube channel Conservatives for McLennan Chisholm. What I find interesting is he doesn't mention what radio style show I'm talking about. As he also doesn't mention that the opening of the show that you just heard is an homage, a tip of the hat to the great one, Mark Levin, a conservative radio talk show host that I listen to regularly on WBAP. And I listen to Rush Limbaugh. I'm also a fan of Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder. These are so he talks about a radio style, but I talk about why I've formatted this show the way I have, because I've been influenced by these individuals who present the facts in a way that I feel are compelling and really draw the attention of the people. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. He also says that Steinhagen has adopted a moniker of Bunker Bob for the series of videos in an apparent tongue-in-cheek nod to his critics' response to the conspiratorial videos. What he does not say, which I find which I believe is intentional, is he doesn't identify where I actually got the moniker Bunker Bob. Because if you've been watching this show for any amount of time, you know that I've only been using this moniker for about a week. Where did I get it from? I got it from Mark Kippen, the husband of Lorna Kippen, who goes on social media and enjoys poking fun and throwing misinformation, outright lies toward me, toward candidates Turnbull, Day, and Baulkham. And here's what he writes. He says, please get your friends out to vote. We need to stop the fear and intimidation tactics continually used by candidates. And again, there's he just like everything. And the thing I want you to focus on in this article is never once does Landon Fisher identify any nature of attack. He doesn't specify what the attack is. When he quotes me, you will see there's no attack there. He narrates, he creates conjecture that this is happening without demonstrating empirically by showing the words or by relating what I'm saying on my show. This entire article is conjecture. It is baseless. His arguments that I am attacking. But Mark Kippen says, continually used by intimidation tactics continually used by candidates, which is a complete lie. That's not. Can he show one point of evidence? And throughout this show, every time I put one of these posts on the show to highlight, what do we continue to see? None of it is based upon fact. None of it is based upon evidence. They don't show, well, here's the intimidation that's being used, that's being employed. They don't talk about that. But here he says, members of city council and their chief supporter and dissident, Bunker Bob. That's where I get the name Bunker Bob. And so as a conservative, I'm like, okay, call me Bunker Bob. I don't care. I don't have thin skin. So yeah, I can hang with that. So I grabbed the moniker and said, okay, call me Bunker Bob. That's where it comes from. I find it interesting that Mr. Fisher chose not to highlight that fact, especially since I've mentioned it in many, many shows, how I got the name, since I've started using it about a week ago. So he calls my videos conspiratorial. Well, there's nothing conspiratorial about facts. Facts are don't care about your feelings. And so while the left, and I'll define what the left is in a minute, I'm not talking necessarily about liberals. I'm talking about leftists like this reporter, so-called reporter. I consider him a propagandist. This is how they push away having to talk about the facts that I bring out in the show. This is true for most conservatives. This is what they do to Rush Limbaugh, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, what they do to Steven Crowder, and the like. So you just kind of marginalize. That's the best way to do it. So you don't take Steinhagen seriously. He's a conspiratist or conspiracy theorist. He goes on. Steinhagen, through the channel, has released 22 videos over the last 2 weeks. While the videos have covered various topics, including hot-button issues of last year's election, controversy surrounding the fire department. Now, I just want to make note that I've done an entire show not on the controversy of the fire department, but the fact that the fire department, the fire chief specifically, was using his brother, who is not a grant writer, who is not a professional grant writer in any way, shape, manner, or form. Has never written grants for other organizations as a professional grant writer. Was the professional grant writer that the MCVFD hired who received 10% of every grant that they received. These are state-funded, taxpayer-funded grants. And we're not talking about hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars. We're talking about tens of thousands of dollars of taxpayer-funded grants that basically went out the back door with the help of the treasurer of the MCVFD, Herman Larkin. Mr. Fisher, and I'm going to do another video that highlights all the things that the Rockwall Herald Banner doesn't report. That's one of them. Mr. Fisher never reported that the reason that we were having the trouble with the fire department is because I was demanding an audit, and that despite the tax rollback, when I ran for city council and we successfully won that, Wayne Orchard and I were advocates. We're pushing the tax rollback, while Mark and Lorna Kippen were saying don't vote for the tax rollback. We will not have enough money to fund the fire department. Of course, we did have more than enough to fund the fire department. We increased their budget at their request 46%, but with the caveat that they at the end of the year that they will submit to a certified audit by an independent accounting firm, the same one that has been auditing the city for the last 10 years. They agreed. Herman Larkin and Chief Jones agreed. Then when it came time for the auditors to begin their audit, to schedule their audit, they said, no, we're not going to do an audit. We're not going to let you audit. Mr. Fisher never reported that. Never highlighted the fact that the fire chief's brother was taking tens of thousands of dollars. And so these are, he says controversy surrounding the fire department. How about fraud surrounding the fire department? He doesn't want to talk about that. But again, this is supposed to be news. This is supposed to be journalism. And it's why I consider this to be journalistic malpractice. Because not only is this propagandist, Mr. Fisher, not highlighting the facts, he's really hiding and skirting the real issues. He goes on, the extraterritorial jurisdiction exchange between McClendon Chisholm and the city of Rockwall, which I did an entire show on to explain why that saved our city, literally. But you still hear the nonsense that it's not true. You still hear them say that. You should watch that video and others. He goes on. The more course selection from the past 2 weeks have made significant claims of corruption and deception against current McClendon Chisholm office holders and against 3 candidates running against his former council members. Significant claims of corruption and deception. Yeah, I did. And the question is, why hasn't Mr. Fisher reported on this? What I find interesting is that meeting that I talked about earlier, where Wayne Orchard and I met with Mr. Fisher. Mr. Fisher was posting allegations in the paper that were basically coming from the FU McClendon Chisholm page, Facebook group page. It's a closed Facebook group. It's euphemistically called Families Uniting or United for McClendon Chisholm. And it just so happens that Mr. Fisher is a member of that. It just so happens that Mr. Fisher is also a citizen of McClendon Chisholm who apparently he's just moved back apparently into McClendon Chisholm into his mom and dad's house in Austin Corners with he and his wife. So he is now a voter. He is on the voter list for the city of McClendon Chisholm. This makes him a very unobjective reporter for a town of 2,600 people. So again, he doesn't highlight, he says claims of corruption. The claims of corruption with the MCVFD are clear. I'm just curious why he's never reported on it. In a video attacking, and this is where we really get off the rails. In a video attacking, notice the word attacking, candidate William Dahl, dated April 20th, Steinhagen makes the claim that Dahl and his family practice Hinduism. Now, I want to just highlight this one point. If I'm a Christian. If you call me a Christian, I'll say, yeah, I'm a Christian. If you say that I'm Jewish, I'll say, no, I'm a Christian. I'm not Jewish. That's as simple as it is. I don't know that you practice Hinduism. I thought Hinduism is a faith. So it's interesting how Mr. Fisher writes this part of the story. In a video attacking candidate William Dahl, Steinhagen makes the claim that Dahl and his family practice Hinduism, which is not at all true. That is not what I said. And in fact, now you're going to see what I did say, because he quotes me from the video. Now, notice, this is the one time that he actually quotes me. And again, like I said, when it comes to empirical, irrefutable evidence, where you show, here's what Mr. Steinhagen said, and here's why it's hate, or here's why it's attack, just watch how he spins this. Here's what I say in the video. When he moved here last year, he moved to McClendon Chisholm in April of last year. Of course, Mr. Dahl, I've also noted, is from California. So I don't believe that his values match my own as a native Texan. But that's neither here nor there. That's my opinion. So I continue. He and his family are Hindu. They decided to celebrate Diwali, which is the festival of lights. Steinhagen said, of course, no one in our community has any problem with that. That's a wonderful celebration and a wonderful faith to really celebrate. Now, why do I say that they're Hindu? Well, because the reason I say that they're Hindu is because they had a Diwali celebration, and the reason I knew it was a Diwali celebration is because out in his front yard, for at least 2 days before his Diwali party, the Dahl family had a sign that said Diwali Festival of Lights. That's all it said. Diwali Festival of Lights. So I know enough about Diwali to know that that's a Hindu faith. I have seen his father-in-law walk our neighborhood. He does it 4 times a day. And so I drew a conclusion that the Dahl family is Hindu. I don't think that there's anything wrong with drawing that conclusion, but if you notice, is there anything in the statement? This is the one time that he quotes me verbatim. But here's what watch what he continues to do. He says, Steinhagen used the topic as a segue to lambaste Dahl for putting on a large fireworks show at the Diwali party, of which Steinhagen said the neighbors were not warned, which is an empirical fact. Neighbors. Now, were I think his immediate neighbors, the ones on the right and left of him, warned, and I think they were even invited? Maybe so. They say they were, but no one else was. There was nothing on the sign that said neighbors welcome. There was no heads up that, and by the way, we're talking about Thanksgiving, November. This is around Thanksgiving. Okay, this is not during the summertime. It's not during New Year's. So while Quail Creek celebrates fireworks very well, we don't celebrate fireworks in off times of the year. And so if you're going to shoot off a fireworks display, and it's going to be a big one, which it was a great fireworks display, it would be a good idea to let your neighbors know that at 11 o'clock on a Saturday night, we're going to have a big party and we're going to shoot off a massive fireworks display. The people across the street from him were not warned. The people behind him were not warned. The neighborhoods were not warned. There was nothing on Nextdoor. He put out no flyers. But here's the thing. My point about this was that Mr. Dahl is campaigning to be what? The bringing common sense to council. That's what what he is trying to say, that he's bringing. To me, that's not common sense to shoot off fireworks in November without letting neighbors know, hey, we're going to be doing this. That was my point about that. It had nothing to do with his faith. Nothing. As the quote states. By the way, that is the only time I mentioned Hindu, that they're Hindu. The only time. But watch how Mr. Fisher twists this. Mr. Dahl says it's simply not true. I'm guessing that the neighbors were not warned. That is absolutely true. I've actually had many neighbors call me, by the way, after the not so commonsensical William Dahl show, who basically said, well, we didn't know that was him, that he's the guy running for council. Thank you for letting us know. Because that's the one guy we would never want to see on city council. This guy has no respect for neighbors. So that is an empirical fact that neighbors were not warned. Here's where we go off the rails. The serious and really large problem is that they are willing to, watch this, weaponize religion against people. I believe this is a very dangerous path that they've chosen to take. Weaponizing religion. When I hear the word weaponizing religion, I think of Al-Qaeda. I think of that kind of thing. Weaponizing religion. See, words mean things to me. Do they mean anything to Mr. Dahl? Because he has no idea what he's talking about. But see, this isn't the first time he's done this. See, earlier this week, Mr. Dahl also posted this to his campaign website. This is what he calls an official statement from the William Dahl campaign. By the way, and this statement was also reposted on Lorna Kippett's Facebook campaign site and Trudy Wozner's campaign website. So this was this week. He says the negative, unethical, bigoted, racist, and divisive campaign practices being conducted by who? The opposing new and incumbent candidates for city council is not our vision for the future that we see for the city of McClellan-Chisholm. He is accusing David Day, Adrian Baulkham, and Scott Turnbull of being bigots and racists. And based on what? Nothing. He hasn't a scintilla of evidence in any way, shape, manner, or form that this is true. He goes on, he says, we would like to reiterate that we do not condone fear tactics, hate speech, and personal attacks. We find this strategy unbecoming of a public official. Again, hate speech, truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. I'm the one that's talking about truth here. But he's talking about the candidates. This is a guy who wants to be on your city councilman. And this is the rhetoric. This is the words that he uses. I think that's a very uncivil way of expressing discourse. Don't you? That's just me, though. I'm a conservative, right? What does he say? He says, Dahl further clarified that his family hosted the Diwali party in the spirit of inclusivity. The question that I keep asking is, okay, so does he say, this is where he should be saying, well, we're not Hindu. We just practice Diwali, or we just celebrate Diwali, or we're this. Does he have a faith? Is there something wrong with having a faith? Is that okay? I don't care. Like I actually said, neighbors are okay with that. We don't have a problem with that. What I find curious is if I have a faith in something, why would I be ashamed not to just say, yeah, I'm Hindu? But he doesn't say that. He goes on to say Diwali is the one holiday in the Hindu calendar that all religions can celebrate equally. What does that mean? That all religions can celebrate equally? What? I didn't know that I'm at a loss. How do you respond to that? I mean, dude, I guess Jews can celebrate Christmas and do it equally. See, again, these words, all religions and equality. These are just buzzwords that are trafficked by what I consider the left. People who don't want to talk about real issues. They want to kind of create a shiny object. This idea of equality and religion. Here he goes on. The holiday is about everybody coming together and being one in unity. Okay, well then, why didn't you invite the community? You may have invited a neighbor or two, but you didn't invite the community. We didn't know. I still haven't talked to any neighbor who has said, yeah, I received an invitation from the Dahls to come to their Diwali party. Sir, this is an absolute outright fabrication. Mr. Dahl is trying to spin. But again, I keep going back to, okay, what did I say that was attacking Mr. Dahl? I highlighted the fact that this man basically demonstrated by his actions that he has no respect for neighbors. He's not used that even though he campaigns as a common sense candidate, he has none. I base it upon facts of evidence, not conjecture, as this story goes on. It says Steinhagen is yet to directly attack candidate Trudy Wassner. No, I've highlighted many of Mrs. Wassner's lies. Mr. Turnbull, her opponent, her Mayor Pro Tem Turnbull, who is being challenged by Mrs. Wassner, has gone through in exacting detail all of a myriad of things that she has posted that are outright lies about Mr. Turnbull. Now, I've addressed these in one of my shows. And he says that whose name I repeatedly mispronounce. And again, I guess it's Wosner. And I say Wassner, and I apologize. That's not intended to be a dig. If I've got more than enough information. I've got enough facts of evidence to demonstrate that these people are not who they say they are. I've got plenty of material. I don't need to go and call names. And so to the Wosner family, I apologize if you're offended. That's not my intent. Never my intent. So I hope that settles that issue. He continues, through a number of videos have focused on Dahl's and Wassner's fellow candidate, Lorna Kippen. Kippen and her husband, both United States Air Force veterans. Interesting that he highlights that they're both Air Force veterans. I'm sure that since this is a reporter, right, he's going to highlight that David Day is also a reporter. A veteran. Because he's a Navy veteran, Vietnam-era Navy veteran. That would be important, don't you think? If he's going to highlight one, shouldn't he highlight the other? Have been longtime vocal opponents of Steinhagen and the remaining running members of the former council. Let me stop at that point. Yeah, they have been longtime vocal opponents of me. Yes, that's absolutely right. When I ran for city council, I ran as fighting for the tax rollback to bring that to fruition, because we had a city council we had a Mayor Gary Moody, Mayor Pro Tem Steve Hatfield, council member Jack Pullen. These men basically put us into long-term debt to build a city hall building that the citizens of McLennan Chisholm had no say in. They had no idea that was happening. They did not put out any information. They didn't put it on the website. They did not let citizens vote on it either. And they built a 5,000 square foot facility for $2.125 million. I want you to think about that. 5,000 square feet for $2.125 million. Well, I'm sure what you're thinking is, well, brick is expensive. Guess what? The brick was donated. Well, it's a metal roof. It's an expensive roof. Well, guess what? We got the roof for half price. Well, and then I'm going to tell you the flooring, the cabinetry was all at half price. We got the furniture for 25 cents on the dollar. But the city hall still costs $2.125 million, putting us, the city of McClellan-Chisholm, the taxpayers of McClellan-Chisholm, into long-term debt for the first time in the city's history. These are the same people who proposed a 333% budget increase, which would have resulted in a 228% tax rate increase, going from 9 cents to 32 cents. By the way, our current rate is 15 cents for reference purposes. So I was saying no. I was leading a fight saying let's bring some reason. We need to roll back these taxes. Their goal, they never expressed their vision for the city. They didn't express their vision for the city until 6 months after they had approved the City Hall bond. 6 months after. And they did it in two letters that they hired a spin doctor to come in with a Washington, D.C. pedigree to write 2 letters. And you know how much each one of those letters cost you, the taxpayers of McClellan-Chisholm? $4,000 a piece. Those 2 letters cost $4,000 each. The first 2, that's how much the citizen survey, the first 2 citizen surveys cost. This last one cost a lot less. But see, the difference between the citizen survey and those letters is the citizen survey gave you the opportunity to actually become informed and respond. Those letters didn't. They basically were designed to tell you, here's what we're doing, here's our goal, this is why this is why we're raising your taxes. And so when he says that Kippen and Steinhagen have been in opposition for a long time, yeah, you bet. Because the Kippets were opposed to this. They opposed the tax rollback. When Lorna Kippen talks about being a fiscal conservative, ask why they opposed the tax rollback. And here's their answer. Because they believed they were perpetuating the lie that I highlighted during that campaign, that if we approved the tax rollback, we would not have enough money to fund the fire department. And what actually was true, what actually occurred was not only did we fund the fire department, we increased their funding by 46%. After the tax rollback, after that was successful. Then we also we had enough in reserve to add money to pay off some of our debt a little early. That saved taxpayers $100,000 or more. I don't know the exact number. I've got it in another video. So yeah, we've had our differences. We have never agreed. I am a conservative. The Kippets will go around and they will tell you all the right things. This is what bothers me and frustrates me to no end about politicians, which I am not. Because there's 2 things I don't kiss, babies and ass. And that's the problem in McClellan-Chisholm. That if you don't kiss the ass of the power brokers, the good old boys, the former mayors, Mike Donegan, Gary Moody, well, then you're going to have hell to pay. And I did. They're going to come after you. And they did. That, if you haven't watched any of my videos, then you may not understand that. You should watch the Knife Wielding Man video. At the very least, watch that. But this is why we've been at odds, because we have a very different philosophy. And what I find ironic about this whole thing is Mark Kippen, her husband, ran against Wayne Orchard in this election. And this was our yard sign. That's what we put in yards. And I would go by, you've seen this video. If you've seen any of my videos, you've heard this story. I would go by homes that would have our sign, and they would also have a Mark Kippen sign in their yard. And when I'd stop and ask, hey, why do you have a Mark Kippen sign in their yard? They would go, well, what, isn't he running with you? I said, well, no, he's running against Wayne Orchard. They're like, oh my goodness. The way he talked, he sounded like he was running with you, that he agreed with everything you said. And I said, yeah, that's right. Because you've got the sign in your yard. That's what you want to hear. Mr. Kippen is going to tell you whatever you want to hear, as will Mrs. Kippen, as will Mr. Dahl, as will Mrs. Wosner. They will tell you whatever you want to hear. I'm not basing this on conjecture. I'm demonstrating it by evidence of fact. This is something that the Rockwall hilarious banner doesn't care about. And so when we look at what she says, and here's the other thing I want to highlight in this little part. They said they've been longtime vocal opponents of Steinhagen and the remaining and running members of his former council, Scott Turnbull and Adrian Baulkham. Now, this is supposed to be a reporter. When you're speaking of elected officials, you use their titles. But again, that's why I suggest that this is not a piece that is designed for journalism. This is not a piece that is designed to present facts and proof. This is a piece of propaganda. Mr. Fisher is demonstrating by his actions, again, that he has no problem working on behalf of candidates who bend to the liberal left. And this is the fundamental problem. This is why I have a problem with taxpayers funding newspapers. You know that that's how you get this paper. Your tax dollars keep this paper alive. Did you know that? You probably didn't even know that. How is that? Well, because the state legislature, in their infinite wisdom, and I still don't understand why Senator Hall and State Representative Justin Holland have not taken this matter up on behalf of cities that require cities to post public notices in their newspaper. Go look at the public notice section. Look at how many pages it is. That's real money. This is what sustains these papers. And then what adds to that, right? How they make money is through advertising. That's where they actually make where they make a profit. And what's important in advertising? What's the key is to be able to show someone, hey, we've got a lot of people who are reading our newspapers. You know the problem with Steinhagen? The problem with Day, Turnbull, and Baulkham is that they are going to uphold the 1.5 acre minimum per home site standard. That's a problem for this news rag, because that limits the number of readers. They need density. They need readers. They need readers. They need readers. The more people that this paper is thrown to for free, which demonstrates what it's worth, in my opinion, the more people that they are thrown to, the more that they can tell their potential advertiser, hey, it's going to reach this many people. So the limited government people, the limited density people, the low density candidates, this is why the Rockwall Herald banner has vested interest in making sure that these candidates, the conservative candidates, are not successful in this election. It's why you have this kind of thing. This is an argument that I'm making based upon evidentiary fact. He goes on. Steinhagen's criticism of the Kippets came right out of the gate in the first episode of his YouTube show dated April 11th, in which he labels Mark and Lorna Kippet and a number of their political allies in last year's election as the real liberals in McClendon-Chisholm, ostensibly as opposed to his, quote, true, end quote, conservatism. Now, notice real liberals is in quotes and true is also in quotes, which basically questions the validity of it. It's basically a way to say it's not really true. And what have I said? What have I said in my videos? I've said, yes, they're Republicans, but the problem is a Republican does not a conservative make. That's a point that I've been making time and time again. Mr. and Mrs. Kippet may, in fact, be Republicans. I mean, frankly, since 93% of Rockwall County votes Republican, it's hard not to be a Republican in any race. That's why, by the way, they have been pushing so hard to try to create the lies, and I've talked about this in other shows that Mr. Fisher, by the way, doesn't want to talk about. The fact that these campaigns are putting out propaganda to not to suggest, not to intimate, but to state that Scott Turnbull and David Day are Democrats, that they voted, that they're registered Democrats. That's the wording that they use, registered Democrats. I highlight 2 points using empirical evidence of fact to refute and rebut those false, baseless allegations. Number one, the state of Texas is an open primary state. No one registers as Republican or Democrat. You get to decide when you vote whether or not you're going to vote Republican or in the Democrat primary. You only get to vote in one. So the way you determine whether or not someone is a Republican or Democrat is how they voted in the past. Has Mr. Day or Mr. Turnbull ever voted Democrat? That's the question, and the answer is no. That's an empirical fact. See the rhetoric that the Kippets and the Wosners and the Dahls they use? See, and how Mr. Fisher adds to that? That's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about liberalism here. I've got friends who are liberals, and they're good friends, and we have no problem talking to one another. Why? Because we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we can have discourse, and we can disagree amicably. We both think the other is a complete nut for believing the way we do, but we can. But that's the great thing about discourse. We should be able to disagree amicably, but not too leftist, which is what I've highlighted in this show. I've defined what a leftist is, which is what we're talking about here, which is what Mr. Fisher, this reporter, is clearly espousing, which is one who propagates and or advances misinformation, half-truths, and or outright lies to slander, demonize, marginalize, discredit, and or vilify those they oppose. That's the fact of this. That's what's really happening here. The Kippets, the Wosners, the Dahls traffic in leftism. You know, it's not liberalism. It goes far beyond that. This is why there's a problem. This is why I have this show to highlight, hey, wait a minute, these people who say, hey, we're Republicans, we're conservatives, we're fiscal conservatives, why I'm showing these are actually wolves in sheep's clothing. They are not who they say they are, as I've demonstrated time and again. So he goes on to say, Steinhagen claimed that Lorna Kippett's, Wosner, and Dahl's participation in the Rockwall County Democrat Party's candidate forum 2 weeks ago as evidence that the trio are not true conservatives. Well, this is something that I didn't know when I shared this last week's headline post or article in the Rockwall Hilarious banner. You see, what I talked about was the fact that we're a county that votes 93% Republican, and yet Mr. Fisher chose to highlight only one of the two candidate forums, the Democrat candidate forum, where three candidates just so happen to be absent. The three of the McClellan-Chisholm candidates happened to be absent. That was David Day, Scott Turnbull, and Adrian Baulkham. Why? Because they were not going to participate in a Democrat county candidate forum. I don't know why I can't remember to say that word. But Mrs. Wosner and Mr. Dahl and Mrs. Kippen participated in it. And so it drives a stark contrast between the two. But what I didn't know then when I did the story, when I did the show, was that that the Democrat candidate forum started at 9 a.m. and the Republican candidate forum started at 10 a.m. Now, again, isn't it reasonable for me to assume that if you have a reporter covering an event, these events, and you have candidates who are not present, doesn't it make sense that since the other forum is an hour later, doesn't it make sense that you would go to both, especially since they're an hour apart? Am I a conspiratist to say, wait a minute, there's a problem here because the only people whose points of view that are quoted from McClellan-Chisholm in this paper are those of Kippett and Dahl and Wosner? Shouldn't I be concerned that Mr. Fisher didn't follow up with any of the other candidates to ask their opinions or get comment? Why is that unreasonable? And why does that make me a conspiratist, a conspiracy theorist? I think it makes me a reasoned individual to go, there's something wrong there. For me to say that the fix is in, I don't think is outrageous. It is also my understanding, based upon a video that was apparently made at this forum, that the things that Mr. Fisher reported these candidates said, they didn't actually say. Which drives home another really interesting point, that if I can get a hold of the video, and I believe I will, that it will demonstrate conclusively that that these so-called facts, this so-called report is nothing more than political propaganda that is intended to benefit three candidates in the McClendon-Chisholm, a city that Mr. Fisher happens to live in. So I don't think that is unreasonable for me to draw a conclusion to. Here's what they go on to say. Kippen told the Herald Banner that she believes the ideological purity test and attack on her character are not helpful for McClendon-Chisholm. This is interesting. Purity test. What purity test am I talking about? I'm simply talking about whether or not you believe in your actions back up your rhetoric. I keep asking on this show over and over again, I say time and again, do you judge people by their actions or their words? Because Mrs. Kippen's actions and her words do not match up. That's not a ideological purity test. It's a matter of fact. Has Mrs. Kippen presented any fact of evidence to demonstrate that she is a fiscal conservative? No, she has not. Ms. Baulkham has, Mr. Turnbull has, Mr. Day has. I judge them by their actions, not their words. She goes on. I think we have enough issues, enough to do without going into character assassinations. Kippen said, I want to stick to the issues important to McClendon-Chisholm, that negative direction of attacking people and their families doesn't benefit anyone, and it's not how we do politics in Rockwall County. This is a complete and utter lie. Mrs. Kippen does not present any evidence whatsoever of anyone's families being attacked. None. But you know what I can do? But I can show you facts of evidence. I can show you an unmistakable. This is a letter. This is a letter that was mailed to my daughter's school, and the return address is my address. A similar letter was sent to my church. And it says, and this one says, one of your students has been seen delivering the attached flyer to homes' front doors. These flyers were left for young children and the elderly to see. As you can imagine, this has created terror. Again, listen to that word, terror, in the community. Here, there are many parents very upset and feel it is domestic terrorism. Does that sound familiar? Are we weaponizing religion here? And may take legal action. The reason we are contacting you is that she was wearing a Dallas Christian, or that she was wearing the attire from your school. I thought you should know. My daughter was not wearing attire from the private Christian school that she attends. But we do have a sign outside our home that says which school she attends. I guess the idea here is to either embarrass or try to think that we'll get thrown out of our school, but that didn't happen. The administration saw that this is awful. This thing, this is awful. These are reasoned people. My church knows what I'm doing, but. They're not endorsing what I'm doing, but I will say that they're watching to make sure that I'm not doing anything that would violate my integrity. They're not. You want to talk about personal? You want to talk about attacking families? What is this? This is the true nature of what leftism is. Leftists don't care about what is true. They are out to destroy. And if you disagree with them you will have hell to pay. Just try and disagree with one of these leftists on a social media site. Just try it. I dare you. See what vitriol is spewed at you. They will crucify you. Why? Because you do not disagree with a leftist. She goes on, Kippen said that Steinhagen's allegation of secret left-leaning politics are simply unfounded. I've never said she has secret left-leaning politics. She has overt left-leaning politics. There's nothing secret about it. She is a wolf in sheep's clothing. She goes on to say, I'm a fiscally conservative Republican and I have not wavered from that. Really? When have you ever been fiscally responsible? It concludes, Steinhagen's YouTube video series now tops 15 hours of runtime. The impact of those 15 hours on the May 4th municipal election, for which early voting has already begun, remains to be seen. This is an election eve newspaper story that was printed by the Rockwall Hilarious banner for the sole purpose of influencing this election today. That's the purpose of this. The big question that everyone should be asking themselves is, where in this paper, where in this story were the three conservatives quoted? Did Mr. Fisher contact any one of them for comment? Nope. Does that make me a conspiracy theorist? Nope. Not at all. Why? Because truth sounds like hate to those who hate the truth. You know, I think that what's important to understand about all this is that the reason I started this program is not because I'm trying to make a name for myself. The reason I did is because after last year's election, I kind of took the idea that elections mean things, and the people have spoken. But the more I thought about it, and as I've gone along, I've realized that election was one great big fraud. The people of McClendon Chisholm were defrauded of facts and truth. And the election was stolen from conservatives and given to liberals, to leftists. And by the way, a leftist and a liberal are two different things. And I want to make sure that you understand that. Like I said, I've got a lot of liberal friends. And interestingly, there are some who are liberal who actually agree with my definition of conservatism. If you go to the knife wielding man video, I defined the difference between conservative and liberal. And for a city like ours, a conservative is someone who wants to uphold our wide open spaces. I mean, just look at the logo that I've got on our website, on the YouTube channel. You'll see these are the issues that we hold to. That's what makes you a conservative, in my definition of a conservative. And I've got a lot of liberals who are saying, hey, yeah, I'm pro-abortion, but I agree with all those things. So my point is that the issue really is leftism, and what I discovered and what I was watching, and from the side is I saw good people. I saw Jim Herron, Scott Turnbull, and Adrian Baulkham being attacked by people doing the same thing they did to me, to them, and I remained silent. This year, earlier, just last month, my church did a men's kind of a Bible study on a weekday, on Thursday morning, and the focus and the topic was men standing up and speaking out. The purpose of that is to focus on the fact that silence in the midst of sin is sin. That's the way it was posited to us. And the fact is, I was sitting and watching as good people were being sinned against, in my definition of sin, which is to lie, to demonize, to vilify, to tear down, to destroy. These people were doing the same thing they did to me, to Adrian Baulkham, to Scott Turnbull, and now to David Day. And I was confronted with the reality that I couldn't contribute to that kind of sin, and by being silent. One of the points about that is when Eve was deceived by Satan, by Lucifer, by the serpent, Adam was there. He didn't say anything. And if you're a follower of Christ, if you're Jewish, if you believe in the Bible as I do, you, or the Torah, you understand that there is consequences to remaining silent. And so I decided to do this as a way of setting the record straight and of clarifying what's really going on, to highlighting the true nature of candidates who claim to be conservative, who claim that they believe in the same things that you and I do, when in fact their actions prove that that's simply not true. And so that's why I've done this show. I'm not trying to make a name for myself. I'm not trying to create something out of. I'm simply trying to ensure that citizens who care to be informed have the opportunity to be informed, or at the very least hear an alternative point of view from what is being espoused and propagated online and in this. And that's why I've done this. I find it interesting that the last part of that article says it's yet to be seen the impact that this show will have, and I don't think it will have a great impact. And the reason why is because I think I'm a month too late. I started this thing about 2.5 weeks ago, and I realized that if I had started a month earlier, I think we would have really made a difference. But things like this, where they post things about a candidate forum and make sure that the voice of conservatives are not heard, when they create stories like this where they ensure that the voice of conservatives are not heard, but they instead decide how to frame the point of view and the rhetoric, right? They create the story. They don't tell. These are not truth tellers. And that's why I created this show. And I hope that you will keep watching, because regardless of how this election ends, I plan to keep going. I want to make sure that at least the conservatives, those of us who are conservatives that are still left, that we actually have a voice, and that we actually have the opportunity to be heard. And that's exactly what I plan to do. So I'll try to keep you informed over however long I can do this. I don't think I'll do it every day. I'm pretty sure of that. I'll probably do a weekly show. But anyway, I appreciate you being with me. And I do hope that you'll go vote if you haven't voted. And I would ask that you would vote for David Day, Scott Turnbull, and Adrian Baulkham, true conservatives who have demonstrated by their actions that they are, in fact, real conservatives. So until next time, I guess tomorrow we'll be coming back to you and with results, and maybe we'll be surprised. But unless we get our neighbors out to vote, unless we tell them, hey, here's what's really going on, you need to kind of pay attention, I'm not sure that we're going to be victorious, because so much rhetoric and has been thrown out there. They have made such an effort to deceive voters once again in this election. So I guess we'll see what we'll see. Your vote does count. Try to get your neighbors out to vote. Have them watch the Knife Wielding Man video. Have them watch some of my videos. Maybe that'll help. So I appreciate your time. Thanks for being with me today, and we will see you next time.